Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I'm Ashdin Dr, your habit coach, and today we have an absolute special for you. We're going to be talking about gut health, but in particular, we're going to understand about our microbiome. All right, now, I know that this is a buzzword that's been going around. I've been hearing the word microbiome for the longest time. So today we have two experts in this field because we're going to understand what it actually is. You know, have we been shooting in the dark when we think about the way that we want to change our microbiome? Do we have a shotgun approach? Are we a sniper now? Do we know exactly what we need to change in our meals? Let's understand the gut and the gut microbiome. So with me, I have Ravi and Dr. Das who are going to join us. Hi, guys.
Hey, Ashdin.
So that was Ravi. And now, Dr. Das?
Hey, Ashdin.
So now you know the two voices. Ravi, welcome. Gautam, Dr. Das, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. Ravi, can you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in this?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you.
This is your first podcast, so...
Yes, it is my first podcast.
Congratulations and welcome.
And I'm glad this is the experience, talking about microbiome, right? So I'm Ravi Shroff, founder of Microbiome Research Pvt Ltd. And for me, microbiome is like a very, very personal journey because I started tinkering with my own microbiome around 2010 and started learning a lot about gut health and microbiome. And at that point in time, even the concept of microbiome was sort of not spoken about as much.
So it was completely alien.
Absolutely. So I had to really dig deep. And when I started putting all of this together and I figured out what was going on in my gut, I was getting literally aha moment after aha moment, right? Every change I was making and I was seeing the result. So that's what sort of really motivated me. Can I make something out of this as I'm learning and convert it into something that really helps a lot of people? So that's how sort of my journey, and I founded Microbiome Research in 2016. And since then, it's just been amazing.
Lovely.
So,
was there an inciting incident? Why did you start researching the microbiome randomly?
I was having gut issues.
Oh, wow.
And I was having gut issues that every doctor sort of, I went to, not the kind of Dr. Das, but the other doctors, sort of gave me vague answers. They didn't give me direct answers as to they knew what was going on. So I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I'm having all these experiences. I'm having these issues. I need to sort them out, but I need to find what's going on. And in that sort of probing, and the challenges that I faced, and I was like, okay, let me overcome some of these, and maybe I can talk more about it later on. But that's what sort of drove me in the direction. And I'm a scientist, basically. So, with my curious bent of mind, I was like, let me just go deeper. And every level I found something, I was like, I need to go one level deeper and deeper. And then, of course, at the same time, the science was developing, right?
It was happening at the same time, right?
Absolutely, around the world. So as I was reading, I was like connecting dots. I was like, wait, this makes a lot of sense.
Were there any particular countries that were advanced in this, that were already doing a lot of this research?
So, I mean, US has been at the forefront, and there are quite a few European countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what actually got my attention was the direct-to-consumer products that were available out there. That sort of started becoming available as tools. And that really motivated me as well, because I was like, this is exactly what I would have needed. So I was like, why don't I just go ahead and build something like this? Because it was, of course, a selfish reason, but also at the same time, something I thought could help a lot more people.
Absolutely.
Because as you discover things and then you start seeing it in other people, you're like, maybe we have a conversation that...
You want to shake them up and say, this is what's happening to you. Listen. And in fact, I hope this podcast does this to a number of people who are facing things like this right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, doctor had no clue what was going on with you. You had to do your research, find out about it.
Yeah. So it started with like issues with milk. All of a sudden, I couldn't digest milk. And then I was like, wait, if there are other problems though. And, I was not paying attention to any of that because I thought that's how my normal body was. And then this milk thing sort of really triggered it. And then I was like, I need to do something because, I used to constantly have gas, which I thought was normal, by the way.
Correct.
Every meal I would be bloated.
Absolutely.
And I thought, this is what happens after every meal because it never went away, So, but then as I started making changes, I realized I was like, wait, I'm feeling actually good. Can we do more of this? And that's what sort of...
In fact, I want to add to this because very often we don't realize how good we can feel when we make these changes in our life.
Absolutely.
Right? We think that this is normal, what we're going through is normal, but only once we make the change and we see how good our body can feel, how energetic we can feel, only then do we actually, know what was happening wrong to us.
Right. I mean, I can talk a lot about this.
And we're going to deep dive into that.
But
let's learn from Dr. Gautam Das. How did he get into the microbiome space?
Yeah, first of all, thanks Ashdin for this nice opportunity of being in a podcast. I've had one podcast before and that was in my office. And this is in a studio. Really very different. Feel a little nervous, but very nice experience. So thanks Ashdin.
My pleasure.
As you asked, what drove me into microbiome research and genomics in general. So a little background, a one-liner about me, which I like to say always, is I'm currently a scientist entrepreneur who is very, very passionate about the magic, what we call science. So that has been the core. So my background is I have a PhD in molecular microbiology from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And post that, I did my postdoctoral research in genomics, cancer genomics to be specific. And that was my entry into the world of genomics, which has evolved over time into a field in itself within science. And since then, I've been doing genomics in different areas like healthcare, went into renewable energy, worked for Reliance Industries Limited here in Navi Mumbai, working on synthetic biology and genomics. And then the passion to use genomics and translate it into healthcare discoveries and solutions for healthcare was always there. And then just now you heard Ravi's story. We met in a chance meeting. It was a dinner hosted by a common friend. And I really feel happy to be on that day, on that dinner, where we talked about several opportunities to integrate solutions which can come through science and deep science. When I say this is deep science. So we talked about, and then we started lab operations right here in Mumbai, genomics lab in 2020, start of 2020. And this lab focuses on many aspects of genomics, and microbiome research is one of our key areas wherein we deep dive into the world of microbiome, as Ravi initiated the conversation. It's a fascinating world of microbes, how they interact with us, how they talk to us, how we talk to them, and the whole story behind it.
So we're going to deep dive into this. But what does genomics have to do with bacteria? Aren't they different things? Are they the same thing, like genes and bacteria? Like, why are they?
Yeah. So genomics is a very broad term. It could be our genes.
Correct.
And broadly, it is used when it is our genes. So human genome was sequenced in early 2000. So that's where most people know genomics as the human genes and our own DNA. But like humans, any other living organism like a bacteria or a virus, every organism which is living has DNA. And the sequencing of that DNA is genomics. So if it is a microbe, it is a microbial genomics. If it's a human, it's human genomics.
Okay.
So that's the difference. Otherwise, it's all under the umbrella of genomics.
Fantastic. All right. So when we normally talk about gut microbiome, the first word is gut. Okay, so let's define the gut for our listeners. What is the gut?
So I think, Gautam, you can explain.
Yeah. I mean, gut, as you all know, is the intestine, and then where our absorption of food takes place. Whatever you eat, it has to go through the gut. And here, it has many other functions. But here, what we focus is the microbes that reside inside this gut. And when we say microbes, it's a collection of bacteria, virus, some very unrelated organisms which sometimes reside in the gut, which should not be there, like protozoa, nematodes. Then we have archaea. So all of this constitute the microbiome that reside in our gut. Some are beneficial, some are harmful. So that is the broad definition of the microbiome inside the gut, and that's why it's called the gut microbiome.
And when we think about gut microbiome, are we talking about stomach? Are we talking about small intestine, large intestine, colon? Like, which aspect of this is where we typically focus for the gut microbiome?
Yeah, so That's a good question. So bacteria are everywhere. So here when we say gut microbiome, it's the intestinal bacteria, not the stomach and other places. Microbiome can be in your many organs. We have now identified skin microbiome, oral microbiome, vaginal microbiome, and urinary microbiome, and all aspects of microbiome have been so far discovered. But here what we are talking is the intestine, where we are calling the gut microbiome.
Okay. So these are in the only in the intestine. So small and large
Yes,
connected.
yeah.
Same. All right. Fantastic. And when we look at the microbiome, what is it that, like, when you all research this, what is it that you're looking for in a healthy microbiome, for example?
Yeah. So what we do in our lab, for example, here in Mumbai, we use genomics to sequence one and every microbe that resides in this intestine. So what we
But
do...
there'll be millions and millions of different kinds,
yes,
right?
Trillions.
Trillions. Wow. Okay.
So this number has recently been
I
actually...
think the ratio is 1:10. Like
Yeah.
one of your body cells to 10 microbes.
Yes,
Wow.
Yes.
So, guys, we are basically lots of bacteria with very
Little bit
little
of you.
human.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite jokes about the gut microbiome is that your gut microbiome, the only culture some people have.
Wow.
Like one of my favorite jokes about it. So there are trillions of these bacteria in our stomach.
Yes. So when we profile, we are actually sequencing everything. And it's a very cool technology. What genomics offers is now you can sequence anything and everything that resides in your gut through sequencing of a simple sample like your stool. What you poop, you take that sample, you sequence anything and everything. So we are unbiased. When we sequence, we go unbiased. We sequence everything. We also
So
get
viruses, the
bacteria, viruses,
fungi, all of that.
archaea, nematodes, protozoa,
Everything.
Everything that comes, we profile them, first sequence them, and then there are computation tools. So whatever is known, one can align the sequences to the known genomes and say, hey, now you have this microbe 1, microbe 2, microbe 3, and so on. And list them into a list of bacteria, fungi, virus, archaea, nematode, protozoa into a big list which can go like human microbiome is very, very diverse, and gut microbiome to be particular is so diverse that we have found in our own experience, we have seen about 500 to 1,000 different microbes inside a person's intestine, different microbes. And then again, there are many of each. So that is the diversity within our own gut microbiome that we see. So once we profile them, once we computationally assign each of them to be an identity, a different microbe, that is where our interventions come in. Like now you have this, what to do?
And you would have measured how many of each of these are there?
Yes,
Okay.
So not just identity, but also the abundance. So you have this, and this much of this. So that is how we first qualitatively and quantitatively assign each one of these bacteria, virus, fungi, as I said. And then once we have this list, this is the master list.
Okay.
Now you go back and see an average human microbiome from a healthy person. And that has been quite well researched, as Ravi pointed out. United States and Europe were pioneers in this research, and India is soon picking up.
So we're getting our Indian microbiome as well researched.
Yes,
Fantastic.
Indian government 2019 announced the Indian Human Microbiome Project. So that's going to be fantastic for research into the Indian data, the actual Indian microbiome.
How long will it take for a research like this to take place?
That takes time.
Yeah, it's a long process.
Yeah, it is. It can be 5 to 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So they collect data from probably...
But in 5 to 10 years, so many lifestyle changes also would have taken place, right?
Yeah.
So you would have seen a transition in the way people are living.
But the data is recorded. So data from, let's say, 20,000 people from the eastern part of India. So these are the numbers that we are talking about.
20,000.
Yeah. So
quantities.
People from hilly areas, people from urban areas, people from rural areas. So that are the kinds of data that gets accumulated, and everything gets recorded as one data bank.
Okay.
So that's the massive goal of Indian government that has been initiated. So as I said, once we see this microbiome profile, both qualitative and quantitative, one assigns this into an average Indian microbiome or an average human microbiome, for example, globally accepted, and one sees what is missing or what is extra here. Are we missing something very beneficial? Are we having something very harmful? is there a pathogen inside you? So these are the kinds of decisions we take. And once something is missing, we try to add it, as Ravi pointed out, by taking probiotics from external. Or if there is a pathogen, you can kill it by using antibiotics, etc. So those are the interventions we do later on. And by lifestyle changes, and that's very relevant here, we are talking to the habit coach. So lifestyle changes becomes a very important part of all of this, like food, prebiotics, probiotics, overall your lifestyle. All of these changes would recommend how good your gut can become. And that is where we aim for everyone to have the best gut possible by doing all these changes.
Absolutely.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Wired Talks, Siddharth talks to former Secretary General PDT Achari, who sheds light on words being banned from usage in Parliament. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Ayushi, Akash and Antariksh discuss the controversy surrounding Smriti Irani's family restaurant in Goa. On The Habit Coach, Ashdin speaks about how a nursery rhyme can be surprisingly inspirational for adults. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita throw light on the rise in investments in plant-based meat. And on the Life Manifesto, Zarina helps you identify energy vampires and gives you tips on how to deal with them. Once again, everybody, remember we have amazing merchandise available. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/store or go to our website and you'll be able to see the link. Do check this out. Do buy some stuff. It really does help us out. Do remember, follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Remember, if you do tell a friend about a show and they listen to the show, you'll have somebody to talk to the show about. We'd really appreciate it also if you could give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And finally, do remember we're also available on YouTube. A number of our shows are available as full video shows, but every show is available on YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, both Lifestyle, Small Case, Capgemini, and Intel V Pro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Is it, in your experience, have you found certain bacteria that are good at certain aspects of things and certain bacteria that everyone needs? What are the kinds, and if you can give some names, so that's just that we get a sense of what it is that you're actually going through and looking at when you see this kind of data.
Yeah, definitely. And this, I must point out that this is also, again, ethnicity and geography specific.
Okay.
And as we are learning more about the Indian microbiome, one bacteria that comes up always in all of our studies is called Prevotella. Prevotella is a group of bacteria, and we have seen many beneficial effects of Prevotella in the Indian context.
So it's one of the good ones?
Good ones,
okay,
in the Indian context. And people who have missing Prevotella can have gut issues. So this is our own learning from literature, as well as our own many samples that we have profiled in our lab.
Do we know what it does?
So not so much about the mechanisms as such. Its beneficial effects in terms of absorption that is known. Some metabolites released from Prevotella are known that have beneficial roles in the human body. But yeah, we have to deep dive into how that is talking to us. So now
Correct.
that becomes a major problem, like scientifically. You have 500,000 different types of organisms. Now each one of them, what it is doing to our human body.
It's like each one has their own language and we have to learn it.
We have to learn it. One is hieroglyphics, one is talking in Italian, one is...
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we have to
And-
figure each of these out.
Absolutely. And I think that's the role of science and scientists, right? And people like us are the curious ones who are going to figure out, okay, I want to talk to you. What do you want to tell me? Let's listen,
I love it. How come you all haven't pulled your hair out? Like with this kind of numbers, I would have been like pulling my hair out trying to figure this out. So we don't necessarily know the mechanism of how it actually works. It's, I think, one of the areas of research that is increasing. But we know that having this gut bacteria in us is beneficial
Absolutely.
in either nutrition absorption, but we don't necessarily know how it
Yeah, in
communicates.
fact, not all bacteria is bad. So, I think first thing we
I
need
think
to
that's
tell...
a good conversation. Like I was talking in that event that we had gone to, that we did the other day.
Yeah.
That the first time I ever told my parents about gut bacteria, they all looked at me shocked and said we should immediately take antibiotics and kill all of them, right? And that was the first way that we thought about gut bacteria. I'm talking about a decade or more ago, and so much conversation has changed across the board. So let's first understand, when we think about bacteria, we normally think about it's going to cause a disease. Why do we have that impression? How did it change into now saying that no, there's good stuff also?
Yeah, so I mean, my take on this is that, as science was developing, like tools like the microscope came about, right? And the first thing scientists did was, I can see it, right? So that from that discovery to like seeing it in places and investigating only those places where it was causing a problem, sort of created this association. You're a bacteria, you must be bad. Nobody
it's
ever...
like me versus them. Like, how dare you are on my body?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And nobody thought at that point in time there would be so much bacteria in your gut, your skin, or practically everywhere on you, right? So that discovery sort of came much later. And even after that discovery, the learning that these could be beneficial, we are still learning. So we don't even have those answers. But we definitely know that they're playing a role much bigger than we think they are. And we ought to give them credit for it,
Yeah.
So
And what are the ways in which the microbiome affects us? So one is, like you said, nutrient absorption. What else does the microbiome do to us?
A lot. Ravi, you want to go?
I would say what it doesn't do.
Yeah.
Let's...
Acha, that's a smaller list.
the discoveries that are being made now and the whole understanding of the gut-brain axis, for example, that the gut microbiome is being called the second brain.
Okay.
Right? And that's something you really actually, only once you start tweaking and understanding, you can get to the depth of understanding, if you improve your gut, what it does to you otherwise. And that's only one area. I mean, things like skin, even soil, or I don't know, Gautam can name 20 other places you wouldn't think microbe would be playing a part, but it definitely has a very important role.
Yeah, like
over
we've
there.
all heard that the gut is the second brain and all, but unless we actually deep down understand why it is the second
Yep.
brain,
Yep.
like you were talking about earlier, saying that the bugs are actually having a conversation amongst each other,
Yes.
with us as well. So it is almost like a thinking center that is being created there.
Absolutely. And this whole concept of gut feeling, for example, right? If you actually started paying attention to it, you would know what your gut is trying to tell you.
What are some of the things that you've researched recently that blew your mind about the gut?
So, I mean, the whole gut-brain axis, the vagus nerve, the number of connection points that exist in your gut that are connected directly to your brain. And that basically are like feeder points for these bacteria to talk to your brain, and you don't even have a say in it, right? So that blew my mind. The whole...
Let's do a round robin. Okay,
Yeah.
one fact that blew your mind, one fact that blew my mind, one fact that blew your mind. Okay, so what is your one fact that you realize?
When I realized that this about gut-brain axis, and then I started connecting the dots, it literally blew my mind. So
It's like, wow, the gut bacteria was actually thinking this for you.
Yeah.
The one that blew my mind was about hunger and how recent studies were done saying that hunger is actually a signal from the gut bacteria to you saying, chalo, 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 feed me, feed me, feed me. So I think that's when I started experimenting with inulin, for example,
yeah.
just to feed the bacteria and see if my hunger actually dropped, because it's not absorbed by the body. So that was one of those things that blew my mind. I have no idea if research was being done on this, but something else. Doctor?
Ashdin, I being a scientist,
You're constantly being blown.
I get blown by the research that happens every day all around the world on gut microbiome and its immense potential and applications. So one thing that comes to mind right now is what is being talked about for diabetes and microbiome.
Okay.
And there's a lot being talked about, both whether it's a cause or a consequence. A lot of research is going on, but there is definitely microbiome dysbiosis going on in diabetic individuals, and we can really harness those information to better use of therapeutics, etc. For example, metformin. Everybody with diabetes takes metformin, but metformin actually causes dysbiosis of the microbiome differently to different individuals. And again, as you said,
so it's different for different
individuals. So genetics also could play another big role in all this. So this is the kind of science that really blows my mind. Earlier, we would not think about the microbiome when we discovered drugs, for example. But now, every pharma company, when they go on to discover new drugs, have to really pay attention, because you cannot disturb the microbiome and treat something because this can create a lot of other issues. So microbiome research, as I say every time, has to be integral to drug discovery for any new drug discovery.
In fact, there was a lot of talk that was happening also when drug research is happening around the circadian rhythms of. So there were, like, for example, when you tested a drug on mice, But what colored light were you shining on the mice at that point of time, right?
Yes.
Was it white light? Was it yellow light? Were they in the dark? Were you actually keeping them awake? So all these things make such a difference in the way that the medicines actually respond. And just like that, you're saying the gut also makes such a big difference.
Yeah, in a big
what's
way.
happening.
In a big way.
In fact, I can add a little bit to that. What they're discovering now is that there is a microbiome difference between people who respond and people who don't.
To
Drugs.
To
To
drugs.
drugs.
Yeah. And they're actually now classifying responders, non-responders. And one cool thing they've realized and they've done is they can take microbiome of the responder, transplant it to the non-responder, and the non-responder responds.
starts responding.
Yeah.
So do you think we'll soon have like drugs that are actually like bacteria spores or
Absolutely.
microbiome?
Yeah, we're not far from it.
Not far from it.
No, absolutely not.
Precision probiotics, as they call it.
Oh, they call precision probiotics.
Precision probiotics. We are very close to having precision probiotics, wherein, suppose for example, your gut is missing 10 important bacteria. You give precision probiotics and replenish those 10 bacteria.
Okay.
So that you are now responding well to a given drug or any other beneficial effect.
Would it be like if I have high blood pressure here, take these bacteria? If I have diabetes here, take these bacteria? Do you think it's going to come down to something like that?
It's already in the works.
It's
in
getting
terms of
close to that.
lot of research.
A lot of research.
Which field is pioneering this? Which particular health aspect do you think is going to be the first?
Metabolism in general.
Metabolism. Yeah. Metabolic disorders, even chronic diseases, oncology,
Cancer, I was
diabetes.
going to say, yeah.
Cancer, yeah. There's a lot of research, especially colorectal cancer. There's clear evidence that bacteria can be the causative agent for colorectal cancer. So that's where we can intervene. Both as a diagnostic, wherein your microbiome signature tells you that you're having colorectal cancer without actually doing biopsy of the colon. And on the other hand, as I said, replenishing some good bacteria so that you respond well.
Fantastic.
So in fact, recently I came across some research about, how probiotics can help the, preterm deliveries and maybe particularly cases where there's high chances of infection. They've found certain probiotics. I forgot what the name of those is, but they found those probiotics to actually improve survival rates. And imagine what that
For
can
the
do.
mother's gut bacteria.
No, for the child.
Child's gut bacteria.
They started feeding the child who was born probably like 10, 12 weeks early.
Certain bacteria.
Certain bacteria. And their survival rate went up dramatically. In fact, it's
Fantastic.
under clinical trials right now in the US.
And it makes so much sense, right? If we have more bacteria cells, might as well treat those before we treat ourselves
Yeah.
in that way.
So it's really fascinating. I mean, as I said, we'll have to find where it doesn't impact. That list might be smaller. So
What are 5 ways in which we can improve our microbiome? What are things that, from a doctor's point of view, from an experiential point of view, affects our microbiome?
So I would say most important is listen to your gut. And that's number one for me. If you're able to listen to what's going on.
98% can't listen to our gut. So it's like, if we listen to our gut, then it says antisocial. The gut feeling has been removed from us by society. So like now we have to start listening back to it.
Yeah. So for me, that would be number one. The other thing I would say is look for good habits, right? This is another thing people don't go to as a natural sort of approach, that you would know what habits are working for you and what are not if you start listening to your gut, because then you would know that, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I can observe some changes. They may be positive, they may be negative, but you have to keep an open mind, listen, and
Ravi, you oversimplified this. How would you actually do it step by step? Like, how would you actually listen to the habits and what happened and what didn't happen?
Yeah. So I'm very geeky and scientist way in these kind of things.
All of us listening are also.
So in my experience, what worked for me was I started making changes and I was consistent. I didn't introduce those foods back.
Okay.
Right? Immediately. I waited. And I say minimum like 3 to 4 weeks is a good time. Minimum, right?
And not even a little bit comes in.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then you have to be listening. What's going on? I made this change. In my case, for example, bloating started reducing. That was a clear indicator something was working.
Right.
So that was one of the things. Second thing was like, obviously once you start doing that, you have to go into the nuances and figure out little bit more, little bit less. Should I change my meal timings? Do I need to change how many times I'm eating? That also affects things like that. So And then, of course, it's a progressive thing, but you can keep creating the next loop until you figure out what works for you.
So the first step is start eliminating something and seeing how it affects you.
Yeah.
Do you feel better? Do you feel lighter? Do you feel more energetic?
Yeah.
Do you feel worse?
Yeah.
Right? So if you feel worse, please put it back in. If you feel lighter, if you feel more energetic, less bloated,
Yeah.
try keeping it out for 3 months, like 3 weeks you said, right?
At least I would say 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
But 3 weeks would be the minimum.
3 weeks minimum, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then don't try introducing it back again.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Then the second aspect would be check meal times. Right?
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe I can have this in the morning, but in the evening it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, coffee and people having coffee at like 7 in the evening
Yeah.
might not be working for you. For some people, it might be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So those two are big aspects. And did you keep a journal? Did you write down
It was
notes?
all in there.
All in your head, okay.
Maybe because I have the science bent of mind, I was able to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, whatever works for people, right? This is something that's an individual journey, and prescribing something like this is very challenging, especially when people don't have the whole picture or the whole sense. So, and also I wanted to recommend that there are a lot more professionals now that understand this versus, of course, when I did this, I had nobody to talk to.
Correct.
So I only accidentally discovered Dr. Das,
Fantastic.
who
Yeah.
sort of understood this, and he was willing. So then we were like, okay, this is on,
So then when you met Dr. Das, how did you test your microbiome first? Did you?
I was like, I want to do it myself. Right? So we spoke about how soon can we get this going? How soon can we build the lab? How soon can we, start figuring these things out? And of course, when you start doing that, you forget the problem. That problem, you start talking about, okay, this is more exciting, let's go. So
And you started you all started commercially opening the lab recently, right? A month back?
Yeah. So actually the test we launched recently, but the lab has been open since 2020 actually.
2020.
So yeah, I think August was it?
Yeah, 2
August
years. We are
2020.
exactly 2 years of lab operations, doing thousands of microbiomes. So we know a lot about microbiomes before launching this product that we launched in June.
Because
this
you
year.
would have to do a lot of tests in order to
Research,
get your
research,
the
lot of
benchmarks right.
research.
Fantastic. All right, so that was us discussing about the microbiome. Now join us in the next episode to understand and deep dive how you can test your own microbiome and make changes in it.